more challenging. So that's what I'd say about medical shows in general. But Grey's Anatomy, it was just fun. It was just fun to be on that show.
Primero, es un honor poder entrevistarla, Úrsula, y quería saber, o sea, ¿cómo estás actualmente? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás de salud?
Well, okay, Ursula, before we start with the questions, yes, John said we are honored to have you here. And how is your health? How do you feel?
I am well. We've all made it through so far. Such a strange time. How are all of you?
We made it through this strange time. We are like you, fine. John, que ella dice que lo logramos pasar por estos duros tiempos y que ya está bien. Y nos preguntó, y claro, estamos bien.
The one interesting thing I think that has come out of this is just everyone's familiarity with Zoom and how that's changed so much. I feel like it's opened up some of the world in some ways because now, we do so much on Zoom. So that's interesting.
I had to be thankful with Zoom. We are talking to you. John dice que lo más increíble es ver cómo Zoom nos ha acercado. Yo le dije que yo amo Zoom porque estamos hablando con ella.
Excelente. Bueno, primero, sí, gracias por responder. Yo quisiera empezar preguntándote sobre, sabemos de que tú empezaste el cine en los 90, en lo cual es increíble. Hay 3 trabajos destacados que la verdad yo los vi hace ya un tiempo y por eso te quise invitar, que es Sargento Baico, Solo Amigos y Presidenta del Consejo. Yo quisiera preguntarte sobre qué recuerdas sobre eso y cuál ha sido tu evolución como actriz.
Okay, we are going early in your career. And in fact, it brings me memories because I'm a kid from the 80s, so I do remember the 90s. And yes, what do you remember back in those days on Sergeant Bilko, Just Friends, and Chairman of the Board? Yes, it's crazy.
Yeah, we're going way back. Let's see.
Yes.
Actually, Sergeant Bilko was a really interesting job for me because let me back up a little bit. So I went to Yale University, and that is really kind of pushes people to theater in New York. So initially I moved to New York City to work in theater. And I did some there, but then for various reasons, I started going back and forth between LA and New York. And I kind of realized that I wanted to put my emphasis in film and TV. And so I had all my student loans to pay, and I had like my really expensive rent. So I had this day job. I had many jobs. But this job that I had at the time, I was in kind of a pretty not good Me Too situation, and I had to leave it. And I got in a car accident and my car was totaled. So I was in Los Angeles without a car. I was trying to get around on a bicycle. I didn't have a job at the time. And so I called everyone I knew that was very few people because I just moved out here. And one of my friends said that he was an assistant director, an AD for Sergeant Bilko, and it was already up and running. So there were no auditions to be had. But he said, if you want to be an extra, I can get you in as an extra. And I was just thrilled for anything because I really needed a job. And so I said I'd be an extra on this picture. And when I got to the set, the director, Jonathan Lynn, I had auditioned for him previously. So he had an idea of who I was. And he said, Steve Martin, who was the lead of the film, is looking for someone to run lines with. And would you be willing to run lines with him? And I said, absolutely. I'd be very happy to run lines with Steve Martin. And so they hired me to be a stand-in for the picture so that I could be there every day to run lines with Steve. And then by the end of the movie, we went on location to Las Vegas. And that's when Jonathan gave me that small part of the assistant casino manager. But that was my first, bigger, like it was a big movie, and it was my first part in a big movie. So it was really exciting. And it all sort of came out of this like very sad, not good place in Los Angeles of like, I have no money, I have no car, I have no job. What am I going to do? And it was really a case of sort of just taking what I could get and sort of trying to build it into something. And it just worked out so wonderfully. So that was a really, really positive experience. And by the end of the movie, I was able to get a car. So like it was great. And then let's see, what else did you say? You said Sergeant Bilko. Just Friends and Chairman of the
Chairman
Board.
of the
Okay,
board.
so Just Friends and Chairman of the Board were a little bit connected, because another thing about me that's not necessarily the norm for most people that come out to LA is I realized pretty early on that I wanted to, I mean, I'm definitely an actor, like that's a huge part of who I am, but there's a part of my personality that wants to have a little bit more control over what I put out into the world. So I realized very early on I wanted to be on both sides of the camera. I wanted to work as an actor in any kind of project, but I also wanted to think deeply about what I wanted to make. And so I formed a production company with my sister, and we put on a stage show called My Name is Alice. And it was the Los Angeles premiere of this musical. And it did really, really well. It ran for well over a year, but it was incredibly hard. We were living together in this 1-bedroom apartment. We had to fill up the theater every night. So we were just constantly like drumming up business and trying to get people there. And we decided that it would be easier, to just make a movie. Because once you make a movie, then it's in the can. You don't have to keep like generating it night after night after night. You just sort of finish it. So she found this script, Just Friends, and she decided that she would direct it. And then I played this wonderful part, Jane, in it, which I really liked. And then that was the beginning of all my sisters coming together and forming our production company, Five Sisters Productions, which we've been doing together since then. And that was mostly just out of necessity, because it turns out that making movies is really hard. And we just had to help as family. And then it turned into a really nice working relationship. So that's sort of how Just Friends happened. And then also out of that show, My Name is Alice, one of the sketches I did was a French singer. And the director, Alex Sam, came to see the show, and he cast me as the French waitress in Chairman of the Board. So that's sort of all connected. And here's a funny thing that you would never know. That same director, Alex Sam, met my dad at a party. I think I was throwing or something. And he was like, oh, so in the movie, Carrot Top plays the chair of a board. And Alex thought that my dad would be great for one of the members of the board. So he hired my dad to be in the movie too. And then that was the beginning of my dad's acting career. When he retired as a university professor, he came out here and he worked a lot as an actor. So that's kind of funny. My children are bilingual, Spanish, English. And they've always been going to a bilingual school or duolingual school is what they call it. And any meetings you go on for a really long time, because you have to stop and then translate into the two languages. And so I was surprised that you weren't stopping me every 2 sentences to translate and then, move on.
Oh, I'll be here for doing that, but I will be the bridge between John and the questions. And of course the answers. John, continúa.
Ursula, también es importante reconocer que, bueno, eso fue como en los 90, en el 97, pero no te pregunto sobre una década más que realizaste, sino más bien hay una historia en el que me pareció súper espléndido que quisiera preguntarte sobre el día más feliz de mi vida, que es una historia totalmente buena que describe el valor de la felicidad. Y mi pregunta curiosa es si esta historia ha podido influir en su vida, que como siempre has dicho, ha tenido siempre algo positivo cada día como actriz, como persona, en todo.
Y te adelantaste muy bien porque ella habló más o menos de ese tema, entonces va perfecto. Yes, without knowing it, because you were talking about like getting out for brighter moments even in the darkest days. Yes, what is the meaning of this movie, The Happiest Day of his life, led you with some meanings, or I don't know, with some good experiences?
So The Happiest Day of His Life was the first movie I directed, and I wrote it and directed, and it was really it's an interesting movie because it's a gender reversed world of a romantic comedy. So I feel like so many of us have been raised on Cinderella stories, on sort of gender expectations for what's masculine, what's feminine, how people should behave, what traditions need to be like. And I was really interested in seeing how people would react if I just took a very standard Father of the Bride type of movie and just reverse the genders. So what was really interesting is that it's not a funny movie. It's very straightforward. It's like a heterosexual couple that's in love with each other and they get married. But it won all these comedy awards because it made people really uncomfortable to see a groom with a huge train going down the aisle, having a woman propose to a man, having huge rings on men's fingers, just sort of all these things. Or like there's a montage of the groom picking the wedding outfit, all these things we see in movies all the time. Having a female priest saying, I now pronounce you woman and husband, as opposed to man and wife, things like that are very simple switches. And interestingly, Jill Eikenberry, who played the mom of the groom with her real life husband, Michael Tucker, she said that it was the first part where she felt very comfortable with props. She'd always felt very uncomfortable with props. But she said, because I'm playing this sort of male gender female person, like because her gender was switched, she felt that her relationship to things was switched. So it was a very complicated and interesting project to work on in terms of the way the actors reacted. There was a lot of confusion, like, but am I playing a man? Am I playing a woman? And, it was just very interesting, even in terms of choosing wardrobe. I thought a lot about, should the women be wearing dresses or should they be wearing pants? Should the men be wearing dresses or pants? Like, how much should we switch? Like, how far can you push an audience to challenge what their beliefs are? And I think it really hit the right note of like pushing it far enough that people really did re-examine things they took for granted, but not so far that people just turned off. I hope it did. And so that's what that movie's about. So it's less about happiness and good feeling. It's more about, we often say, well, I never say this, but culturally it's sometimes said that the wedding day is the woman's happiest day of her life. And so it was a play on that this wedding day is the happiest day of his life. So that's what the title's about. I do think a lot about, I think almost all my films, or probably all my films, I'd have to think about it a little bit, but they all have an element of hope to them. I don't like, there are some filmmakers who just make very dark movies and there's no hope at the end of it. And I feel like, why did I just spend an hour and a half or 2 hours in the movie theater just leaving like, oh, well, the world is horrible. That doesn't feed me. And I don't like to do that as an artist. I like to, even if I'm challenging, I spend my life challenging culture in many ways. I think I think most of my career has been about trying to promote equity and fairness. And so I feel very strongly about saying something in the movies I make, but I want there to be some element of hope that, things could get better or will get better.
And what I was going to say is that I feel that it's so ahead of its time. I haven't seen it, but the things that you're telling me are the things that now the movies aspire to do, like pushing the envelope on things on gender and things on. Mm-hmm. But this is way back from. I don't know if YouTube it even existed in those years. No.
Wait, say that last part again.
Okay, that I feel that this subject of this movie is so ahead of its time because now we talk about this subject now in these days, but this was before Facebook and all this.
It's been very interesting. The last couple of years have been very interesting to me because I do feel like stuff that I've been trying to talk about and people have like said I'm crazy or I don't have a sense of humor or like lighten up or whatever. Now everyone's talking about, which is super exciting. It's really incredible and wonderful. So I hear what you're saying. And I hope, in some ways we're also slipping way back. Like a lot of things are being rolled backwards and that's very concerning to me politically. But again, on the hopeful front, I do feel like people's eyes have been opened. So I hope we're moving in the right direction.
And I hope people can see that when they see this interview. John, continue.
And I will say, I do think a lot about how media, not only reflects our culture, but it really creates it as well. So I really feel like filmmakers have a responsibility to think about what they're putting out there. Period.
Yes. John, continúa. Te va a encantar cuando responda.
Claro, de hecho, bueno, tú me ayudarás con los nombres de los títulos. Hay dos historias que ella ha influido como guionista, que la cual la felicito aparte de ser directora. Hay dos temas importantes, que la verdad los medios de comunicación es muy difícil visibilizarlo por temor a los comentarios, pero acerca de las dos historias que has escrito sobre en contra de la gerontofobia, el racismo, que es, por ejemplo, dos temas importantes que los medios de comunicación pues no visibilizan. Más bien la pregunta es que si ella nos puede dar ese consejo, no solo para nosotros, también para los futuros medios de comunicación, para que logremos evitar este tipo de, por ejemplo, odio hacia las personas mayores, en All Boy, y también el racismo. O sea, yo sé que de pronto en algún momento en el canal de pronto hay una persona que se considera aria, pero ¿qué opina ella sobre qué consejo nos da ella al respecto? ¿Qué puede pasar a- ante este tema?
Y me adelanto, sí va a suceder y después te vas a dar cuenta en quién. Okay, I will resume it because it's a long question, but yes, you also are a screenwriter, and there are two projects, All Guy, and Have the Story, Surely Chris Home, Catalyst for Change. You deal with subjects like, I don't know how we say it in English, gerontophobia. I don't know, like, yeah, phobia to the old man, to the round.
Ageism.
Yes, sorry.
Ageism. Mhm.
And of course, with subjects on racism. Yes, the question is, how do you, being a screenwriter, I gave like a piece or like your work to showcasing these subjects?
Yeah. I think there are specific themes that are sort of finding their ways through most of my films and things that I write and direct. So you mentioned Old Guy. So Old Guy is about ageism in media. And it was really inspired by my father's experience. So I mentioned my father had this acting career. But my father was this remarkable man. He started at age 13 as a professional jazz musician in California. His mother died. He had to make his own living. He played with all these jazz greats. Then he became a psychologist and was a researcher at the National Institutes of Health. And then he became a professor of psychology. And then when he retired from that, he became an actor. So he had all these really interesting careers. He was married to my mother for 50 years. He had 5 children. He had 8 grandchildren. He did yoga. He learned several languages. Like, my dad was like a really fascinating and interesting, complex person. So as an actor, almost all of his jobs did not have names. They were called Old Guy. He just played the old guy. And a lot of them were hilarious. I mean, he was a really funny and a really talented comedic actor. But if you took all of his jobs as a whole, it was a very narrow picture of what aging is. It was like you either, died in your soup. He did that pretty regularly, or he was lecherous toward, very young women, or he had his behind showing in a hospital gown, so it's sort of like very, very, again, each one, or he peed his pants. That happened a lot. Like, so each one could be really funny in that particular show, but like as a whole, it was like, he has a way more interesting life than this. So that's where Old Guy, that was the inspiration for Old Guy, to do a short form series where there's this man, he has this interesting life in 1/3. He has a relationship with his agent in 1/3. And then he has the job that he gets in the last third of the show. And they're all very, very, very short, very easy to watch. But just a humorous way of looking at this pretty serious problem we have in Los Angeles, right? So I think that that's been my approach to dealing with social issues, coming in with a bit of humor, so that people can recognize it without feeling uncomfortable, but just to start that conversation. And that's really exactly the same as the Half the History series. So that's an ongoing series. And I think you mentioned Shirley Chisholm. So Shirley Chisholm, I don't know if you know, but she was like an incredible politician. She was the first African-American woman to run for president. And my mother was a delegate for her when she ran for president. So I was personally very interested in her story. But she's just one of the many half the histories that I've highlighted. I have one on composers and one on artists, and the one that's right now going to premiere, I think, next month, is called Tapping into Our Past, Tapping into Our Future, Ayodele Cassell. And it's about this choreographer, present day choreographer, Ayodele Cassell, who's like an amazing tap dancer. She was just put on a postage stamp. She's totally amazing. And the movie is about how tap dancing has been an art form, an African-American art form that has been handed down. And there are all these women that have sort of been forgotten. So it's sort of calling back to these dancers of the past. And we have her dancing with them in the old footage with digital effects. So anyway, so each of the movies has its own personality, but basically what they're about is trying to address that we sort of forget. Well, we don't sort of. Half of our history is often neglected, at least half. So, women's history is often undertold, I'll say. So it's about trying to highlight those stories. And these, again, very short, sort of poetic pieces. And then actually the 3 movies I just finished over this COVID lockdown are also similar themes. I made one called We Treat Them the Same, which is about how parents unintentionally gender children. And there's all this research about people not intentionally. I mean, sure, I do it too. Like everyone does it. Like you throw little baby boys higher than you throw little baby girls when you're playing with them. You let boys walk, get further away than you let the baby girl. Like we do all these things where we're totally not consciously gendering our children. And then at a certain point, people are surprised that there's this divergence of interest or behavior. And even like the color pink for girls, like that's a very recent thing. And that was started by a department store. Like that's marketing. That's not, girls don't come out of the womb like liking pink. That's 100% marketing. Right. But I've had so many conversations with parents where people are like, oh, my little girl just likes dolls and my little boy just likes trucks. It's like, really? I mean, so I ended up making a movie about it because I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand having one more conversation about that. And then I made a movie called A Future Wish, which is about a little girl who wants to see herself as an adult, wants to meet herself as an adult. And she meets herself as an adult and she realizes that things have not changed for women the way she thought that they would by the time she's grown up. And then I made one called Expiration Date, which is about 2 sisters in their like 70s, 80s who are setting up a dating profile. And that's really about aging and about people living until they die, continuing to live. So anyway, so you see that there's like these themes about gender, about women's rights, and about aging in a lot of these movies I do. I guess they're the things I'm thinking about.
And I was like hypnotized or mesmerized because you were talking about women and things of the past, and I was looking to the pictures for in the back. I see these.
Oh yeah, that's my. Yeah, these are my relatives back there. That's so funny. They're looking down on me. Yeah, that's my grandfather there, great grandfather. That's my dad. Oh, I don't know what you can see. Anyway, they're all there. Those are my great aunts seeing the beach. They were from Nebraska, seeing the beach for the first time. Seeing this, it's sort of glaring because the window is glaring. But anyway, so family photos. We're actually under construction, so there's a ton of stuff in this room. Like this dresser would not normally be here, but it's been moved to another room. So my office is very cluttered right now.
John, ya sabes qué pregunta viene. Ya habló de ese proyecto. Si quieres aumentamos, pero ven con la pregunta que se viene que está buena.
Bueno, yo quiero hablarte sobre las sitcoms, que es una era totalmente indispensable. Yo quiero serte sincero, Úrsula, no solo por Grey Anatomy.
Tú cumpliste un sueño hoy, dilo.
Sí, cumplí un sueño porque yo, bueno, últimamente estoy viendo The Office y créame que me sentí no solo incómodo, sino me sentí bajo tus, o sea, comprendí totalmente sobre cómo es
Uh-huh.
ser la sitcom, pero yo quisiera saber su experiencia en todo este largo proceso con series grandes pues, de televisión. Y bueno, a mí me encanta Office, no lo miento.
Okay. Zooming off, we need to talk about your amazing career on sitcoms. Yes, The Office, Grey's Anatomy, The Dead Girls Detective, that agency caught your enthusiasm. Yes, how do you feel? It's fat, it's crazy. In Latin America, we call it series médicas, like this Grey's Anatomy. And yes, comedias. Tell us about your experience. And John, in fact, John is so happy. He really loves The Office. And he said that he understands your character, understands your motivation. So go ahead, make him happy.
Well, The Office, that is probably the show I get asked most about, because it was a hit at the time and it's maintained this popularity. Still now. In fact, it's been sort of delightful for me, because it seems like around 7th and 8th grade, a lot of the kids watch the whole series again. So I sort of get all this excitement again by relatives or whoever. So that's been really super fun for me. So, I played this character, Hannah Smotridge-Barr, who had just had a baby and was doing inappropriate baby things in the office, pumping breast milk. Well, that's not necessarily inappropriate, but like it was seen as awkward moments. And I don't know how familiar you are with the show, but there were two offices that were merging, and pretty much every week someone would be fired from the new office, the other office that was merged. And so it was a really, really interesting experience for me. I had so much going on in my life at the time. I, in real life, had just had a baby. So I was in true life pumping on, like in a closet, and then I was fake pumping, like in the show. So that was like bizarre. I was so sleep deprived. And then this was such an exciting experience. I only was hired for one episode at a time. So it was sort of like every week I'd find out if I was going to have another week. And I love recurring on shows, because when you recur on a show, it's like you get to know all the people and you get to know the crew. That's a really wonderful experience. But also, I was not only doing that, over the course of these 2 years, I was also recurring on this other show, The War at Home. And that's when I was doing Happiest Davis Life. And that was just sort of making, touring the world and winning all these awards. And I went to the Emmys, and there were just like all these exciting things happening. It was just like a whirlwind 2 years there. So yes, The Office was definitely a highlight. And I mean, if you had any specific questions, but I would say in general, the cast was so, it's interesting because sometimes when you're on a big show, the cast can be kind of jaded or tired or frustrated by whatever. And it felt to me, as kind of a guest on the show, that people were really excited. They just were really, it seemed like they were really, I mean, actors always have their real lives too. There's always a million things going on, but, I think that they were kind of excited about it at the time, because that was just the 3rd season. So it was really like, in its, coming into a realization, like this is really a thing. So anyway, The Office was amazing. I'm blathering on about it. What else can I tell you? You said about Dead Girls Detective Agency. Is that what you said? That was totally different, because that was for Snapchat. And that was fast, fast, fast. Fast, fast, fast. You do the scene and then they'd say, do it twice as fast. Because with Snapchat, it's and it's also, you do all these years on sets and you feel like you have a gist of how it works. But then all of a sudden you do a show like that and they're no longer framing the way you're used to. They're framing like this. And so the way everyone's blocked is different, and you have to really adjust to that. And just the speed, because, there's no time. You're not like having dramatic long things. So I was playing this grieving mother who's supposed to be weeping and crying and doing all these things. It was like, cry faster, have the emotion faster, just get there faster. And it was I really loved it. I thought that the director was amazing. I thought that the people running the show were just incredibly supportive and fun. So anyway, that was a great experience. I actually never saw the final thing, but it was really great to do it. I loved it. And then you said Curb Your Enthusiasm was the other one. So That I did much more recently. In fact, I did that during this whole COVID business. And that was so different in two ways. Again, you feel like you've been on so many shows, or I guess I feel like I've been on so many shows, you sort of know what to expect. But Curb Your Enthusiasm was the first show where there wasn't a script. There weren't lines. There weren't marks to hit. It was all improv. And I've certainly done plenty of shows where there's a degree of improvisation, and I'm very comfortable with that. But this was really different in that it was so much more loose, so much more just free. Like there were no lines to memorize. You just think about a scenario and then you just sort of live in that. You live in Larry's world. And Larry's wonderful. I've known him for a while through my husband, and he's he was really welcoming, and that was really great. It was very strange with COVID though, because I'm so happy for I'm so happy for the regulations they have. I've not gotten it. I'm really grateful. I think they've been incredibly responsible and careful, which I think is great. And so strange as an actor, because they put us in these, like, have you seen the shields where you have it around your head and then the shields come down? This was like a reverse. It's like a dog, like a cone of shame. So it's like it was around your neck and then the thing comes up like this. And very hard to hear unless you were backwards. Like you could hear sound from behind coming in, but hard to hear from the front. And it felt very removed. It was just very odd, but super interesting. I was really happy. And, we got tested every day. That was so interesting because I hadn't been tested before that. So anyway, it was very, very, very interesting experience. So yeah, I'm just blathering. Oh, and Grey's Anatomy. Well, so medical shows, it's funny because Grey's Anatomy, I actually really enjoyed that experience, but I really didn't have much to do on it. Very, very grateful for every job I've ever gotten ever. And again, I love recurring on a show, but I was a nurse, I didn't have a lot to do. But I will say I've done lots of medical shows, and those I think are the hardest in general, because more often than not, like, let's say, like I was a medical examiner on a show, and you just have to like rattle off a ton of medical jargon that is hard. I think we're used to actors where you say something, I say something, you say something, we're listening to each other. It all kind of makes sense. It's not that hard to memorize. But when you just have to talk and talk and talk and talk about all these things that cause someone's death, I think that's more challenging. So that's what I'd say about medical shows in general. But Grey's Anatomy, it was just fun. It was just fun to be on that show.
And now the camera is yours, Ursula. For us, it's a big thank you. But send a hi to the channel, to wherever you want. Tell your social media. Tell people to be ready for your projects. Go ahead.
Oh, well, hi to everybody. Thanks for watching. And what's up for me next is I'm working on a feature now, which I'll hopefully shoot next year. And in film festivals right now is going to be this Tapping Into Our Past, Tapping Into Our Future, Ayodele Cassell. So if you get a chance to see it, please do.
John, ¿qué tienes que decir?
Aplausos.
Oh, you're both delightful. John, I wish I spoke Spanish. I missed it. My dad spoke Spanish. My kids speak Spanish. I'm the one that's left out, but I look forward to watching more of your interviews.
But you know some words?
I know some words. I understood it, like 3 things you said. But you speak so fast.
I don't know if this applause is a contra, but no, but thank you for the delightful team. John dice que somos encantadores, que le gustaría ya saber más español porque varios, de hecho los hijos son bilingües y no.
Tú eres genial.
Todo. Tú eres genial. You are awesome.
You are so wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Really, really fun. And let me know if you need anything else, and we'll talk again soon.
John, que lo que quiera saber más de ella hácelo saber. Compártele cosas del canal. Ella dice que quiere saber más del canal.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Bye bye.
Adiós. Buenas noches.
Adiós.
Adiós.